Hi everyone. So today we'll discuss Vista's first chapter, The Third Level. The Third Level by Jack Finney. So this story describes how the narrator finds a third level at the Grand Central Station. Actually, there is only 2 levels at the Grand Central Station, but here the narrator finds a third level. So we'll see what happens. The presidents of the New York Central and the New York, New Haven and Hartford railroads will swear on a stack of timetables that there are only 2. But I say there are 3 because I have been on the third level of this Grand Central Station. Yes, I have taken the obvious step. I talked to a psychiatrist friend of mine, among others. I told him about the third level at Grand Central Station, and he said it was a waking dream wish fulfillment. He said I was unhappy. That made my wife kind of mad, but he explained that he meant the modern world is full of insecurity, fear, war, worry, and all the rest of it, and that I just want to escape. Well, who doesn't? Everybody I know wants to escape, but they don't wander down into any third level at Grand Central Station. So here the narrator is telling the stations, the New York Central and the New York, New Haven and Hartford railways. All the presidents of these stations, they will swear, they will promise that there is only 2 levels. There is only 2 grounds and there is no third level. And as a evidence, they will have a heap of timetables which shows that there is only 2 levels. But the narrator is telling that there are 3 levels because he had been to the third level of the Grand Central Station. So this is the Grand Central Station. Yes, I have taken the obvious step. I talked to a psychiatrist friend of mine, among others. I told him about the third level at Grand Central Station. So he is telling that everyone are telling there is only 2 levels at the Grand Central Station, but the narrator had experienced a third level. He has undergone a third level. He went to the third level at the Grand Central Station. So he talked with his psychiatrist friend and he told him about the third level. And he said it was a waking dream wish fulfillment. So the psychiatrist told that it's a dream come true. He was dreaming about it. It's not the real life. That was his wish. That was his wish to go into the third level. So it was like a waking dream wish fulfillment. He said I was unhappy. So the psychiatrist said the narrator had such an experience. He found another level at this station because he was unhappy and he wanted to escape. So when the psychiatrist said that he was unhappy, that made my wife kind of mad. So when she heard that her husband was unhappy, his wife was angry. But he explained that he meant the modern world is full of insecurity, fear, war, worry and all the rest of it. But further, the psychiatrist cleared that it is not because of her, but the modern world is full of insecurity, fear, war and worries. So everyone wants to escape from all this hardship and sorrow. Everyone wants to live a happy life. No one likes to be in a difficult life. So that is the reason why the narrator saw a third level. And that I just want to escape. Well, who does it? Everybody I know wants to escape, but they don't wander down into any third level at Grand Central Station. So here the narrator is telling, the psychiatrist told that I wanted to escape, so that I am imagining that there is a third level. Because I am not able to cope up with this modern world problems, insecurity, fear, war, worry, all those difficult situations I am not able to cope up with. I am not strong enough to cope up with them. So I wanted to escape from this realities of life. So I am finding a way. So that is the third level. That is my imagination. So the narrator is telling, who doesn't want to escape? Everyone want to escape. Everyone want to do, but they are not finding a third level at the Grand Central Station. But that's the reason, he said, and my friends all agreed. But the psychiatrist told, that is the reason why you are finding a third level and no one else is finding it. Everyone are telling there is only 2 levels, and you are telling there is a third level because of your unhappiness. And my friends also agreed to it, because everything shows that I am in an imaginary world. And they said that they claimed my stamp collecting, for example, that's a temporary refuge from reality. So they are telling that they agreed to the psychiatrist's opinion that I am escaping. I am in an imaginary world. I am imagining things, and that shows and they points that my stamp collecting is an example. That is a temporary refuge from reality. Well, maybe. But my grandfather didn't need any refuge from reality. Things were pretty nice and peaceful. So he's telling, maybe it is that it is true with me, but what about my grandfather? He was also collecting a stamp, but in his time he was having a very good peaceful life in his day. From all I hear, and he started my collection. It's nice collection too. Blocks of 4 of practically every US issue, first day covers and so on. President Roosevelt collected stamps too, So it's a nice thing. I have lots of stamp and first day covers also. First day covers means when a stamp is issued, what these people do, the people who collect stamps, what they did, they buy when the stamp is issued for the first time, they buy it first, and they buy an envelope and they put the stamp and they write their own address. So they get that first issue of that stamp, that is first day covers. Usually they will just put a piece of white paper, blank paper inside that cover. Nothing will be written inside that first day covers. Okay, so that date on the stamp, there will be stamping will be there, so it shows the date. So it will show that it is there. They have got the first issues of the stamp. And he is telling that lots of people were collecting stamp. Even the President Roosevelt was also collecting stamp. So he is making, he is convincing that stamp collecting shows that he has this type of imagination. Anyway, here's what happened at Grand Central. So now he's explaining what actually happened at this station. One night last summer, I worked late at the office. I was in a hurry to get uptown to my apartment, so I decided to take the subway from Grand Central because it's faster than the bus. So he's narrating what happened. He was at the what happened at the Grand Central Station. So last summer, he was working late and he wanted to go fast to his apartment. So instead of taking bus, he took the subway from the Grand Central. That was much faster. So here is the subway. Subway. Now I don't know why this should have happened to me. I'm just an ordinary guy named Charlie, 31 years old, and I was wearing a tan gabardine suit and a straw hat with a fancy band. I passed a dozen men who looked just like me, and I wasn't trying to escape from anything. I just wanted to get home to Louisa, my wife. So he's telling that I don't know why all this happens to me. I'm an ordinary person. And he's introducing himself. My name is Charlie. I'm 31 years old and I'm wearing a usual suit. Gabardine is a type of cotton cloth, smooth cloth, cotton cloth. Okay, with the wearing a gabardine suit with a straw hat. This is a straw hat. Like the normal people around me. I have passed many people around me who just look like me. I wasn't trying to escape. I didn't want to escape from anything. I wanted to reach my apartment and I want to get to my wife, Louisa. So the wife's name is Louisa. I turned into Grand Central from Vanderbilt Avenue and went down the steps to the first level where you take trains like the 20th century. Then I walked down another flight to the second level where the suburban trains leave from, ducked into an arched doorway heading for the subway, and got lost. That's easy to do. I have been in and out of Grand Central hundreds of times, but I am always bumping into new doorways and stairs and corridors. So I turned into Grand Central from Vanderbilt Avenue. So from Vanderbilt Avenue, this is Vanderbilt Avenue. From there, he turned to the Grand Central. He took the first level from where we take trains like the 20th century. Then I walked down another flight to the second level. He reached the second level where the suburban trains leave from, ducked into an arched doorway heading for the subway. So he enters an arched doorway heading for the subway and he gets lost. And he's telling that it is easy to get lost at the Grand Central. I have been in and out of Grand Central hundreds of times, but I am always bumping into new doorways and stairs and corridors. So many times he has been to the Grand Central, but always he is telling that I am reaching new doorways. New doorways are seen, new stairs and corridors I am reaching. Once I got into a tunnel about a mile long and came out into the lobby of Roosevelt Hotel. So once he is telling he went through a tunnel and he was walking miles and he reached the lobby or corridor of the Roosevelt Hotel. Another time I came up in an office building on 46th Street, 3 blocks away. And in another time he came up in an office building on 46th Street. Sometimes I think Grand Central is growing like a tree, pushing out new corridors and staircases like roots. There's probably a long tunnel that nobody knows about feeling its way under the city right now, on its way to Times Square and maybe another to Central Park. So he is telling that the Grand Central Station is growing like a tree. It is growing like a tree and it is having roots to many places. New places, new ways are being found. It is having new corridors, new staircases like roots. It is penetrating. He is telling it may be having many ways, and one we will be going to the Times Square. This is Times Square and the Central Park. So it is having many corridors and many stairs and doors are being opened. New places are being found. So it is, the station is compared to a tree. It is having roots which is growing and which is finding new ways. And maybe because for so many people through the years, Grand Central has been an exit, a way of escape. Maybe that's how the tunnel I got into, but I never told my psychiatrist friend about that idea. So he's telling that for so many people, the Grand Central has been like an exit, a way of escaping. And it's quite possible that the long tunnel in which Charlie went was also a way to escape. The corridor I was in began angling left and slanting downward, and I thought that was wrong, but I kept on walking. So he has found another way, and the corridor was turning left and it was slanting downward. So he thought that it was wrong, but I kept on walking. He went on walking. All I could hear was the empty sound of my own footstep, and I didn't pass a soul. So while he was going through it, he didn't hear any other noise. The only sound he heard was his own footstep, and he didn't meet anyone. Then I heard that sort of hollow roar ahead, that means open space and people talking. So while going like that, he heard sounds like there's an open space there and there are lots of people speaking. The tunnel turned sharp left. I went down a short flight of stairs and came out on the 3rd level at Grand Central Station. So after that, the tunnel turned into to left side, and from there was stairs downward, and he came to the 3rd level, at the new level at the Grand Central Station. For just a moment, I thought I was back on the 2nd level, but I saw the room was smaller. There were fewer ticket windows and train gates, and the information booth in the center was wood and old looking. So he thought that it would be the second level. But when he looked around, he saw that it was different. The room was smaller. There were only few ticket windows and train gates were there compared to the 2nd level. And the information booth, which was made of wood and it was old. So he understood that it was not the 2nd level. And the man in the booth wore a green eye shade and long black sleeve protectors. So the man was wearing a green glass and he had a long black sleeve protectors. The lights were dim and sort of flickering. Then I saw why. They were open flame glass light, and the lights in the station was very dim, not bright enough, and it was flickering, it was moving. Then I saw what was the reason why it was an open flame gas light, because it was not any bulb or light, it was a gas light. It was an open flame gas light. This is the open flame. Here the gas, the fire, that with that the light is coming, so that flickering will be there. There were brass tippetons on the floor, and across the station a glint of light caught my eyes. A man was pulling a gold watch from his vest pocket. He snapped open the cover, glanced at his watch and frowned. So there around him he looked. So it was all different. There were brass tippetons. So this is used for spitting. It was kept on the floor, and across the station a glint of light caught my eye. A man was pulling a gold watch from his vest pocket. So in olden days there was no strap watches. Watches were kept. Chain will be attached. So everything showed that it was the past. He opened that watch, looked at the time, and he was not happy with it. He wore a derby hat, a black 4-button suit with tiny lapels, and he had a big black handlebar mustache. So he was wearing the old-fashioned. This is the old-fashioned dresses in 1894. So this sort of dress was seen in the man, and he was having a handlebar mustache. This is handlebar mustache. Then I looked around and saw that everyone in the station was dressed like 1890 something. So when he looked around, all the people were dressed in 1890 fashions. I never saw so many beards, sideburns and fancy mustache in my life. A woman walked in through the train gate. She wore a dress with leg of mutton sleeves and skirts to the top of her high-buttoned shoes. Back of her, out on the tracks, I caught a glimpse of a locomotive, a very small Currier and Ives locomotive with a funnel-shaped stack, and then I knew. So he looked around, everyone were dressed in old fashion. Then he saw a lady who was wearing a dress with leg of mutton sleeve. This is called leg of mutton sleeve. She was wearing a top and she was having a skirt and wearing a high button shoes. This is high button shoes. So everything, all the dressing, everyone were dressed in 1890 fashion. So all were in the, so it shows that he moved to the past. And after that he saw the train. He saw the train with a funnel shaped stack. An old fashioned train was also seen. To make sure, I walked over to a newsboy and glanced at the stack of papers at his feet. It was the World, and the World hasn't been published for years. So to make sure that he is in olden times, what he did, he walked over to the newspaper boy and looked at the collection of papers. So he saw the newspaper, The World. So The World was a newspaper which was published long before. So the lead story said something about President Cleveland. I have found that front page since in the public library files, and it was printed June 11, 1894. So he's telling that it had a news about the President Cleveland, and he's telling that the front page he had found in the public library files, and it was dated in as June 11, 1894. So he is in that year. I turned towards the ticket window, knowing that here on the third level at Grand Central, I could buy tickets that would take Louisa and me anywhere in the United States we wanted to go. So he turned towards the ticket window. And he knew that in this time, in the 1890s, he could buy tickets so that he can go anywhere in United States because it is cheaper. So he thought about taking tickets. In the year 1894, and I wanted 2 tickets to Galesburg, Illinois. So he wanted to go to Galesburg in Illinois in 1894, in that year. Have you ever been there? Then he's asking whether you have been to Galesburg, Illinois. It's a wonderful town, still, with big old frame houses, huge lawns and tremendous trees whose branches meet overhead and roof the streets. So he's describing Galesburg. He's telling that it's a wonderful town with big old frame houses. There are huge lawns, tremendous trees. See, you can see the pictures of Galesburg, Illinois, a house there. Houses are like this, and there are big lawns and big trees. Branches meet overhead and roof the street, which are big trees which are overlapping each other. And in 1894, summer evenings were twice as long, and people sat out on their lawns, the men smoking cigars and talking quietly. and the women waving palm leaf fans with the fireflies all around in a peaceful world. So he's telling in 1894 the summer evenings are longer. And the people would sit on their lawns. The men will be smoking cigars and the women will be waving the palm leaf fan, and there will be fireflies around them, and they will be sitting peacefully in front of their house. To be back there with the First World War still 20 years off and World War II over 40 years in the future. I want 2 tickets for that. So that time in 1894 is such a peaceful time where there is no worries, only happiness. People are very peaceful and happy. They will be sitting at their lawns talking, smoking cigars, playing, singing. They are having a peaceful life there because it is 20 years back of the First World War and 40 years back of the Second World War. It was such a peaceful time. All those problems, everything came after that. So the narrator wished very much to go there. So he wanted 2 tickets for that. So he wanted to take his wife and both of them wanted to go there. The clerk figured the fare. He glanced at my fancy hat band, but he figured the fare, and I had enough for 2 coach tickets one way. But when I counted out the money and looked up, the clerk was staring at me. He nodded at the bills. "That ain't money, mister," he said. "And if you're trying to skin me, you won't get very far." And he glanced at the cash drawer besides him. Of course, the money was old-style bills, half again as big as the money we use nowadays, and different looking. I turned away and got out fast. There's nothing nice about jail, even in 1894. So the clerk told him about the fare. While he was telling, he looked at the hat of the narrator, and he told the fare. And the narrator had enough for 2 coach tickets. He had one way to go there. He was having the money. But when I counted out the money and looked up, when I was counting and going to give the money, the clerk was staring at me, and he told that ain't money, mister, he said. And if you are trying to cheat me, you won't get very far. So he is telling that this is not the money. This is not the money, and if you are trying to cheat me, you won't get far. And he glanced at the cash drawer besides him, and he looked at the cash drawer, and there he found that the money was old fashioned. It was the old days. The cash was in olden times. It was different. I turned away and got out fast. So he just turned away and got out fast because going to jail was not a good thing, even if it was in 1894. And that was that. I left the same way I came, I suppose. Next day, during lunch hour, I drew $300 out of the bank, nearly all we had, and brought old-style currency that really worried my psychiatrist friend. You can buy old money at almost any coin dealers, but you have to pay a premium. My $300 brought less than $200 in old-style bills, but I didn't care. Eggs were 30 cents a dozen in 1894. So he left, and he ended up going there next time. So the next day at lunch, while in office at lunchtime, he withdrew $300 from his bank, and he went to the coin dealers, to exchange it for the old currency. But the amount he gave $300, and he got less than $200 only. It was less money which he got, and they had to pay premium for that. But that didn't upset the narrator, because things were very low cost in 1894. So with that he could live. So he thought that it was very cheap living in 1894. And he tells that the eggs were 30 cents. They had to pay only 30 cents for a dozen of eggs in 1894. So everything was ready. He was preparing to buy tickets to the third level. He exchanged the currency to old currency. But I had never again found the corridor that leads to the third level at Grand Central Station, although I tried often enough. So after that, he never found the third level again. He tried to find the third level and go there, but he didn't find it again. Louisa was pretty worried when I told her all this and didn't want me to look for the third level anymore. And after a while, I stopped. And his wife Louisa was very much worried when she heard about all the third level stories, and she asked him not to look for it. So after a while he stopped. I went back to my stamps, but now we were both looking every weekend, because now we have proof that the third level is still there. My friend Sam Weiner disappeared. So after that, he switched on to his stamp collection. But after that, they both started. He and his wife started looking every weekend. They started to look for the third level. What was the reason? Because they got a proof that the third level exists. Why? Because their friend Sam Weiner disappeared. He was not found. He disappeared. Nobody knew where, but I sort of suspected because Sam's a city boy and I used to tell him about Galesburg. So Sam Weiner was disappeared somewhere and no one knew where he went. But the narrator is telling, I know where he went. He suspected Sam to go to Galesburg because Sam came from a city, and the narrator always used to tell about the Galesburg, how it was, how beautiful place it was, about his childhood days. I used to tell him about Galesburg. I went to school there and he always said he liked the sound of the place. And that's where he is, all right, in 1894. So while he used to narrate his stories, when he went to school about the beauty of Galesburg, Sam liked the place. Sam told that he liked the place, and the narrator is sure that Sam has gone to Galesburg, and now he is in 1894. That time he is there in Galesburg. Because one night, fussing with my stamp collection, I found, well, do you know what a first day cover is? So he's telling why. Because one night while I was going through my stamp collection, I found a first day cover. So now he is explaining what a first day cover is. When a new stamp is issued, stamp collectors buy some and use them to mail envelopes to themselves on the very first day of sale, and postmark proves the date. The envelope is called first day cover. So what is this first day cover? When a stamp is issued for the first time, this stamp collectors, what they do? They buy it and they paste it on the envelope, and they will write their own address. And they will post it to them. So in the stamp on the envelope, the date will be there. So that type of envelope is called first day cover. They are never opened. You just put blank paper in the envelope. So these type of envelopes are never opened because there will be nothing written in that. Maybe some people will put blank paper in it. That night, among my oldest first day covers, I found one that shouldn't have been there. But there it was. It was there because someone had mailed it to my grandfather at his home in Galesburg. So one night, while he was going through his stamp collection, among some of the first day covers, he found a cover which should not have been there, which was not there for long, and there it was. It wasn't there because someone had mailed it to my grandfather at his home in Galesburg. So it was there. It was written. His grandfather's name was on it, on that first day cover. That's what the address on the envelope said. So the address was his grandfather's address, and it had been there since July 18, 1894. So that first cover was having his grandfather's address, and it was having the date 18/18/94. July 18, 1894. The postmark showed that, yet I didn't remember it at all. The stamp was 6 cents, dull brown with a picture of President Garfield. Naturally, when the envelope came to Granddad in the mail, it went right into his collection and stayed there till I took it out and opened it. The paper inside was in blank. It read. So he is telling that he doesn't remember such type of that first day cover. There are so many first day cover, but this was something he didn't see, but it was having the date 18/18/94. So it was a very dull, because it is old. It is in 1894. It was old, and it was having the picture of President Garfield. So when envelopes come, grandfather doesn't open it. It was going straight because it's the first day cover. So nothing will be there. So it went straight to the collection. So he took that and he opened it. The paper inside was in blank. So every time people used to put blank covers, but this was not a blank paper. It read. So what was there in that first day cover? There was a paper and it was having a letter. So the letter read, 941 Willard Street, Galesburg, Illinois, July 18, 1894. Charlie. It was addressed to Charlie. I got to wishing that you were right. When I got to believing you were right. And Charlie, it's true. I found the third level. I have been here 2 weeks, and right now, down the street at the Dales, someone is planning a piano, and they are all out on the front porch singing, Seeing Nellie Home. And I am invited over for lemonade. Come on back, Charlie and Louisa. Keep looking till you find the third level. It's worth it, believe me. So the letter, it was written to Charlie. And it was saying that, I wish that you were right, and I believed you were right, and Charlie, it's true. It's telling that the person who wrote the letter has found the third level, and he is there for 2 weeks in Galesburg. And he is describing what is happening there. He is telling that in Dales Street, someone is playing piano, and everyone is sitting in the porch singing the song, Seeing Nellie Home. And he is telling that evening I am invited for lemonade, and he is asking to Charlie and Louisa to come and keep on looking till they find the third level, not to stop. And he is telling that it's very good, it's worth it, believe me. Keep looking till you find the third level. The note is signed Sam. So who is the person who wrote the letter? It was Sam Weiner. Sam Weiner was a person who disappeared suddenly. So who is this Sam Weiner? We'll find it out. At the stamp and coin store I go to, I found out that Sam brought $800 worth of old style currency. That ought to set him up in a nice little hay, feed and grain business. He always said that's what he really wished he could do. And he certainly can't go back to his old business, not in Galesburg, Illinois, in 1894. His old business. Why? Sam was my psychiatrist. So at the stamp and coin store, when he went, he found that Sam had brought $800 old currency. So that was good enough for him to set up a hay feed and grain business. He told that he would always wanted to do that he doesn't wanted to do the business he does. So who is this Sam? Sam is his psychiatrist friend. So Sam was a psychiatrist friend to whom Charlie told about the third level. So he is telling that Sam has gone to the third level, and he is telling that in Galesburg he cannot work as a psychiatrist because there in 1894 everything was peaceful, there was no problem, so there is no need of psychiatrist in that year, that time. So he is telling that Sam has started a hay feed and grain business there, and he always wished to do that. He liked that business. So here the end of the story, the third level. So this is an imaginary story. Here the narrator Charlie is, in order to escape from his realities, hardships of life, he has find a relief in finding a third level, and he imagines his friend psychiatrist also gone to the third level. Clear for you? That's all. Thank you.